let's spend just a few minutes discussing information and information literacy. And I think that's a really big issue in government because we are today just inundated with information from everywhere. And I think we can all point directly here, right? If you want to know something, what's the first thing you're going to do? Do birds fly or whatever the newest your question is, you head. It's like it's a verb. Google. We're going to Google information and you're going to get lots and lots of hits. But did you know that there are algorithms that choose the order in which that you see things, right? So which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 1 million depends on that algorithm. And so it's sometimes difficult, and I've alluded to earlier, that students at all grade levels, including in college, have a lot of trouble recognizing the difference between good and bad information. And that's a big deal in the context of science, where we need really good evidence. And so as we start looking around and thinking about the world, it become quickly difficult to tell, okay, so what is or is not, good information? And by good here, we don't mean information that we agree with. We mean information, evidence that is reliable and useful to us as researchers and scientists. So for instance here I have InfoWars with Alex Jones, who has a website that is trying to be, it looks in many ways like a news site, right? You can follow them, read more about it, see all the news, right? On an alternative media show. As a matter of fact, Jones has his own radio show they host here on the website. But of course, Alex Jones, InfoWars, this is not a reliable source of information. As a matter of fact, it can be pretty quickly demonstrated to continually submit false information. But in the world of the internet, in the world of digital devices where lots of information is coming to us, we're often pretty bad at distinguishing, say, InfoWars from something like Politico, which is a magazine based in Washington, D.C. Both are purportedly news sites. You'll notice that we have similar kinds of banner ads and things going on. We're taking a look currently at the U.S. edition. But it can be difficult as a new student to say, hey, wait, I found this on Google, I found that on Google, I found Politico on Google, and so what's the difference between this and an InfoWars? And then it gets even more difficult because what we're going to try to do in this class is introduce you to things like this. This is a database, and it contains lots and lots of journals, right? And this JSTOR is one of the ones that we have access to at Daytona State's website. So if you head to daytonastate.edu, so again, if you head to Daytona, oops, I cannot type today. There we go. So if you head to daytonastate.edu, you too can hook into the library's website and have access to things like journals and primary sources. So what is one of these journal things? Well, a journal, let's think about that. A journal is a peer-reviewed source. It's a place where scientists send their work, social scientists in my case, and completely anonymously, other individuals take a look, not at their conclusions, but at their methodologies, like we've been learning, their evidence, their math, all kinds of things like this, to determine if this is reliable, useful, worthy. And so a number of people have to agree to this before it becomes published. So a scholarly journal is one that has been vetted by other scholars. So even unlike, say, Politico, which is a more reliable Washington, D.C. news magazine, so coming from a journalist with points of view, a peer-reviewed source is something that comes from scholars at a publishing house like Oxford, for instance. You may also online find examples of this kind of evidence. So for instance, here is the Stanford History Education Group taking a look at online information. As a matter of fact, they are looking at the very question we're talking about today and saying, hey, how much do students know about vetting sources? And as I noted to you in an earlier lecture, that they summarize this as being bleak, that students are really bad at it, including probably identifying this kind of summary. So as we're going through class and we're looking at this information, I'm going to ask you to try, and we're going to work together at being critical analyzers of data. Where does the evidence come from? Is it a peer-reviewed journal? Is it a magazine? Is it a newspaper? What kind of magazine or newspaper? Is it an advocacy group? Is it, right? So we want to think about all of those kinds of issues when we try to decide, is something better or worse evidence in the context and for the purposes of science? And that can be particularly difficult in a world in which we tweet and Facebook and have what we call social media. Now you'll notice even on the site that I use Twitter and other tools, and I encourage you to do the same thing. But right, there's no necessary vetting about what's on your news feed. So for instance, I know that Chad Pergram, I've worked with him personally. He works for Fox News, so he is a reporter. He has his own position. The Hill is a newspaper that covers Washington, D.C., but specifically Congress. Politico, I've already noted to you. So, I also follow people with which I have lots of disagreeing opinions, or I might even think they have bad information because I'm just interested in what they're talking about. But you'll notice that I have to be very careful about the feed, because the feed is not being critical. The feed is just a feed, and because of all the information, I have to be careful to have a filter on thinking about that evidence. So as we move forward in this class, one of the things I hope you're going to work on, and we're going to try to work on together, is thinking about evidence, where it comes from, and I'm going to try to introduce you to evidence that comes from some of the best places you can, scientific, scholarly journals.